Bitcoin opens up August with a major pullback. However, in today's video, we're going to be going over the major high-term timeframes, the monthly looks for Bitcoin as to what to expect in this month of August, basically answering the question, is Bitcoin likely to retest or maybe even trade above 70,000 bucks in August and beyond? Or not. And that is going to be the focus of today. So first things first, I want to start off this video with a very simplistic analysis, but this simplistic analysis has been incredibly useful historically speaking, and that is focusing on the monthly time frame, of which we just got a new monthly, and that red moving average, which is a 5 exponential moving average. You can see that Bitcoin has dumped down. I mean, if you can really tell that that's a dump, I mean, it looks pretty bad on a daily, but on a monthly, not so much, and reconnected with that red moving average for the 4th month in a row here. And we do expect reconnects with that moving average throughout an overall trending move. And again, if you're not familiar why this is relevant, is that anytime Bitcoin's essentially been closing monthlies above that, it's just been wise to be bullish. And whenever Bitcoin's been closing below it, it's been wise to be bearish or looking for the end of the current cycle. Again, it's not going to be perfect, but overall, it's going to be putting you in the right direction, 90% of the time, it looks like. Again, just kind of, visually backtesting it right here. You can see Bitcoin in its upside phases likes to come down and reconnect with it, but ultimately closing above that pretty much during the whole portion of the upside pushes in its macro cycles. And then of course, the second that Bitcoin closed below it, as you can see right here, party's over, baby. And it's back down to the depths of hell. Now, in this case, we can see that the 5 exponential has actually moved up from last month to this month, which is sitting just below 63,000 bucks. Bitcoin's low this month thus far is actually 62, about 300 or so right now. Of course, you can get wicks lower than that, but ultimately that is going to be the big area to be mindful of coming into the end of August, meaning that if Bitcoin continues to close above it, I continue to just have a general long-term bullish bias until proven otherwise. So that is still secure as far as August goes. But again, it's technically like right below 63,000 bucks at 62,950 or so. So do keep an eye on that, and providing the impetus for a little bit of a bounce to open up this month as well with. Let me get my notes back up over here. Okay, beautiful. Now, because yesterday was such a massive failure on the live stream because it was just experiencing some god awful lag, which by the way, I've actually ordered a new computer now, so hopefully we don't have to deal with that ever again. But I do want to go over the higher term time frame monthly look for the accumulation and distribution indicator. So we can see that when we bring this, where is it? There we go. Whoops. There we go. That when we bring up the accumulation distribution indicator, which essentially just measures the net delta between buys and sells, we actually do see that August has opened up with a downward slope. If you're wondering why that is significant, it is significant because anytime that we have seen a downward slope, in that sort of critical green zone, those have actually correlated, with the end of market cycles. And while it is opening up August with a downward slope, that is not actually confirmed until September 1st. So it is a legitimate concern now that this, we are starting to see some cracks on this one. But the way that I would interpret this as of the current moment, again, keeping in mind that Bitcoin is still closing above that 5 exponential, is that, look, we would expect this slope to turn positive before September 1st if the market cycle is going to continue, meaning that Bitcoin would have to gain so much in August to make that true. Now, unfortunately, we do not have a reverse function for this indicator. I think it would actually be impossible to do because it's based off of volume. But my point is, or the point that I'm trying to make is that, we would expect that if this market cycle is going to continue, we probably see a pretty big upside move, before the end of this month. It doesn't necessarily need to be at the beginning of this month. In fact, the beginning of this month is obviously still corrective at at best. But we would expect that Bitcoin, would probably close this month above. I would guesstimate around 68,000 bucks, maybe even 70,000 bucks. So, putting 2 and 2 together, if you are still bullish on the long term, this would be theoretically, a very likely opportunity here. Again, Bitcoin coming down to reconnect with that moving average, and as of right now, that slope is still very much negative. So it's we would expect a big move if that's going to fall through. Anyways, on top of that, and kind of supporting what we just went over, is the monthly stochastic oscillator right here, which again has continued on with its downside pressure, which was kind of, it was obviously likely coming into the end of this month, or the end of July, I should say. But we do see something very, very important here. The monthly stochastic oscillator is now going to, at the end of August, test pretty much exactly at the edge of the critical zone, which you do expect a bounce around, typically like at least a pity bounce, and then continuation if this market cycle again is going to continue. I want to find an example for this. There actually is not a great one on the board here. Typically see it on lower term timeframes compared to this, but ultimately the current pivot for the monthly stochastic oscillator is 71,330. So both the accumulation distribution indicator and the monthly stochastic oscillator are certainly more on the bearish side right now. I mean, there are like some very concerning things. It's just, for me, I still would not really entertain a massive reversal as long as Bitcoin is above that 5 exponential. And then also, of course, the hash ribbon signal that we went over last week, that still comes into play here too, giving me just an overall upside bias. Looking at this is probably an opportunity. But again, this would imply that Bitcoin, crawls its way probably close to this number by the end of this month in order to flip this back up and savor the monthly here. On top of that, we do see that the monthly HPDR is still trading right around that 38.2 level. Bitcoin did close pretty much right at it for the end of July. So in August, if we're going to see this market cycle continue, we do expect to at minimum, close above the 38.2 level. The 38.2 level right now is 66,200 basically. So if Bitcoin closed above there, that'd probably be like the lowest level that I'd really be mindful of to continue on with this current trajectory to the upside. Now, I would also juxtapose that actually against the spot price action for Bitcoin, because it is a different look on the HPDR, and there is actually something very significant that happened here as well. And if you are bearish, I mean, you'd probably be likely very much focusing on this, because Bitcoin did close the monthly below the median, and we don't really see. I mean, I'm trying to find examples here of prior times where we've seen the monthly close below the median and Bitcoin continuing up without like a severe correction. I mean, we have this example right here from 2019, but it closed below the median and goes for a severe correction, I would argue, actually. Same thing over here in 2021. Maybe this is like the best hopium, spends maybe 1 or 2 months kind of filling out the space between the median and the bottom side of the next channel, and then trying for another upside move. But this has not happened often in the past, actually, going back actually all the way to 2017. Again, the market cycle was over as soon as Bitcoin closed below the median. So I would say that is also a little bit more on the concerning side here. So it's as always on a razor's edge, but I would say that again, just based off of the hash rate indicator and also the 5 exponential on the monthly, while these concerning things are going on in the background, which could be showing some of the cracks, I would not look at them as actionable until we start to really violate those more simplistic pieces of the analysis. Until then, what this, with a bullish bias, this would imply that Bitcoin is likely to see actually a decent August, which is kind of counterintuitive, or at least less likely historically speaking, just because August is typically a very low volatile month. Very little typically goes on during August because, it's like it's that month where most professionals are going on vacation, right? It's like the last month before school starts again. So most people go on vacation with their families, and very little happens in markets, or at least that's what traditionally does happen. But doesn't mean it always has to happen. And we do have kind of a similar setup to last August anyways, where Bitcoin, was correcting, and that actually did set in the low before Bitcoin, just launched much higher. Anyways, I did want to also provide an update, it's not necessarily an update just yet, on the 5-day setup right here. So this was a 5-day, very simple setup, just using that red 5 exponential moving average. Anytime that Bitcoin closed above it, open up a long. Anytime that Bitcoin closed below it, close that long at whatever price that it is. Funnily enough, over the past, I guess this is a full history here for Bitcoin. It has had a tremendous go of things, returning some pretty insane numbers, I should say. And as of right now, Bitcoin is actually like pretty much right at that 5 exponential. So this current trade would have opened at $66,000. Is it going to close tonight for kind of like a moderate loss? I mean, actually, I would say like a rather minimal loss here, like a 2.5% price action loss. Bitcoin closed below. Obviously, we'll know that by the end of the day, but that official number is again 64,600. That does mean that if Bitcoin closes tonight above 64,600, it keeps a short-term upside hopium alive, meaning that we'd still expect Bitcoin to, play out one of these moves, which, on average, the winning trades for this one is like around 50%, which is fucking insane. Which would, of course, take probably like a month and a half to 2 months to play out, but it's one thing before the next, and as of right now, it's right there. So we'll obviously know the answer for that tomorrow. I do also, because we're actually a little bit longer than what I thought, but anyways, I just wanted to provide a quick heads up for anyone who's in the Krown Quant automation service over here. I was playing around this past week with like some really simple setups that were kind of spurned upon by this idea right here with the 5 exponential on the 5-day, and I found some really fucking crazy shit, which just it's embarrassingly hilarious because it's so simple. It's so fucking simple. I posted one of them in the group now, so if you're wondering, it'll be this one right here. You can manipulate this in whatever way that you want, but it's just like such a fucking simple setup. This one's a 12-hour time frame over the past what is this, like 9 years for Bitcoin. It's returned insane amounts. On top of that, if I were to go all the way throughout the full history of Bitcoin, it's going to return significantly more, but I did feel like it was a little bit misleading to include like the very early years of Bitcoin because some of those trades were just like astronomical. Anyways, keep an eye out for that. I'll probably post a few more in there, but you'll get the idea with it because it is, like I said, hilariously simple and a great example of a strategy which can have a rather low win rate, but because the profit factor is so high, it's going to be profitable over time. 36.5% of the time it's winning. That's not a whole hell of a lot. Basically 1 every 3 trades you're going to be winning. but the thing is that in the performance summary, your average winning trade is returning over 7.25%, and your average losing trade is losing like 184. It's not that much. So of course that's a winning setup long term. Anyways, that's there for you if you're in that service on Discord. And I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off on this video. As always, I want to wish everyone the best of the best. Again, apologies for the shitty stream yesterday. That was fucking annoying, man. Really, really pissed me off, but it is what it is, man. And hopefully it'll be fixed for next week. I have a new computer on the way as well, so hopefully I can get that set up in time as soon as it arrives, which will be hopefully very early next week. All right. Anyways, I'm rambling on now. As always, I want to wish you the best bets. Take care. Much love, and see you hopefully next time.